I want you to picture a very specific kind of misery.
Oh boy.
Lay it on me. Okay, you're 30,000 feet in the air. You are crammed into the middle seat on a cross-country flight.
I know the circle of hell perfectly.
Right. Your knees are shoved into the seat in front of you. The person on your left is, like, drooling on your shoulder.
And the in-flight entertainment is definitely broken.
It's completely broken.
Um,
So you literally have nothing left to do but just stare out the tiny window.
Just looking down at the ground for hours.
Exactly. And if you actually look down for more than 5 minutes, you start to notice that the world, it doesn't look the same everywhere.
You start picking up on the geometry of it all.
Yeah. Like, if you're flying over Iowa or Kansas, it's relentless. It is a perfect, rigid checkerboard.
Squares on squares.
Green and brown squares stretching all the way to the horizon. It seriously looks like someone drew the entire state with a ruler.
It's hyper-organized. Very intentional.
But then, maybe you keep flying east. You cross the Atlantic, you look down at rural France or Germany, and that order just completely vanishes.
It shatters.
It looks like someone dropped a plate of spaghetti on the floor. The roads are winding everywhere. Fields are shaped like jagged puzzle pieces. Just total chaos.
Well, it looks chaotic to our modern eyes, but none of that is an accident.
See, that's what I used to think. I always just assumed, well, the American Midwest is flat, so they drew squares. Europe is bumpy, so they made squiggles.
It's a logical assumption, but it's mostly wrong.
Yeah. And that brings us to the mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at a really fascinating analysis from AP Human Geography on rural settlement patterns and land survey systems.
It's a great set of source material.
It really is. And it turns out geography is only a tiny part of the story. By the end of this deep dive, we want you to be able to look at a map or out that airplane window and decode the language of the landscape.
You're basically playing historical detective. You can look at the dirt and figure out who settled there, what they were afraid of, and even what their concept of fairness was.
So let's just jump right in. We should clarify, we're focusing entirely on rural life today.
Right. We are leaving the cities and the suburbs behind. This is about the agricultural base, the countryside.
The places where the food actually comes from. And the data from our sources shows that when humans settle in these rural areas, they don't just randomly scatter.
No, they almost always organize themselves into one of three very specific patterns.
And the first one, which seems to be the default setting for, well, most of human history, is the clustered settlement.
Yes, also referred to as a nucleated settlement in the literature.
Nucleated, like a cell with a nucleus.
Exactly. Picture a definite center point. In medieval Europe, that might be a castle or a stone church. In a different era, maybe a village green or a school.
And everything just bunches up around it.
All the houses, the barns, the blacksmith, they are packed tightly around that central hub.
But I kept getting stuck on the inefficiency of this. I mean, if I'm a farmer in one of these clustered settlements, I don't actually live on my farm.
No, you live in the village with everyone else.
So I have to wake up at dawn, leave my house, and commute out to my fields.
That's the daily reality, yeah. You walk out to the crops, work your land all day, and then physically carry your harvest back into the village before dark.
That just seems so wasteful. You're burning daylight and calories just walking to work. Why would so many distinct cultures from Asia to Latin America to Europe choose something that inefficient?
Because efficiency was a luxury they didn't have. Survival was the priority.
Safety in numbers.
Exactly. The primary driver for a clustered settlement is vulnerability. If you live in a pre-modern world or anywhere with political instability, being isolated on a farm is practically a death sentence.
You cluster for defense.
You build a wall around the village.
Yeah.
You need to know that if bandits or wild animals show up, your neighbors are literally within shouting distance.
So it's a trade-off. The social contract is basically, I will endure the huge annoyance of walking miles to my crops in exchange for the safety of sleeping near you.
That is the exact trade. And it heavily influences the type of farming they practice. The analysis connects clustered settlements with intensive subsistence farming.
Because you can't manage a massive plot if you have to walk back and forth.
Right. The plots have to be smaller and closer to the hub. You aren't running a 5,000-acre wheat farm if your daily commute is on foot.
And it also creates a very specific social vibe, right? Like, you really can't have any secrets in a nucleated settlement.
Oh, zero privacy. Everyone knows exactly what you're doing at all times. But that high social cohesion is also a safety net. You share tools, you share the labor during harvest, you share the burden of just staying alive.
Okay, so that's the village model, the clustered pattern. But that is definitely not what I'm seeing when I drive through Nebraska.
Definitely not. Which brings us to pattern number 2. And historically speaking, this one is actually a bit of a global anomaly.
The dispersed settlement.
The isolated farmhouse. It's the classic romanticized image of the American West or the Australian outback.
Yeah, a single house, a big red barn, and then nothing but corn for 3 miles in every direction until you hit the next house.
Now, what's fascinating in the source material is the psychology behind this. To choose a dispersed model, a society needs a very specific set of conditions.
You basically have to be incredibly arrogant.
Confident is maybe a kinder word, but yes, you have to make 2 massive assumptions.
And the first one is safety.
Right. You have to assume you are fundamentally safe. You don't need a wall. You aren't afraid of being raided in the night. That implies you trust a strong central government, or you are heavily armed and confident.
But the second assumption is about the land itself.
Yes. You have to assume that resources are abundant everywhere, specifically water.
Because if there's only one good spring in the whole valley, everyone is forced to cluster around it whether they want to or not.
Exactly. Necessity creates the cluster. To live 5 miles away from your nearest neighbor, you need to know you can just dig a hole on your own property and hit water.
If you can't do that, the dispersed model just completely collapses. So choosing to spread out like that, it isn't just an aesthetic preference. It's a massive statement of wealth and abundance.
It really is. And economically, it links up with extensive commercial farming. Because you live right on the land, you can manage these incredibly massive tracts, you can deploy heavy machinery.
But again, there's a trade-off. The clustered folks traded efficiency for safety. What did the dispersed folks trade?
Social connection. The trade-off is deep, sometimes crushing isolation.
You don't get that daily chat at the village well.
You might go a week without seeing a human being outside your family. It builds a culture of rugged individualism, sure, but it can be incredibly lonely.
Wow. Okay, so we've got clustered huddling for safety, dispersed spreading out for profit, and then there's a third pattern.
Linear settlements.
The line. I feel like this one is the most purely pragmatic of the 3. You just line everybody up along the thing they need most.
It's pure functionalism. And usually that lifeline is a river or a major road. Buildings are just arranged in a single, long, continuous line.
I've actually driven through places like this in rural Quebec. You enter a town, and it's literally just one street, but the street goes on for miles.
Ribbon development is another term for it. The logic is simple. For most of human history, a river was the only highway, so everyone absolutely needs a dock.
You can't cluster in a circle, because the people in the back row wouldn't be able to get their boats to the water.
Right, and you can't disperse too far, or you lose the community. So you string out, it's a Clivel hybrid, you maximize access to the transport network, you keep neighbors on your left and right, but nobody is behind you.
That makes perfect sense. So those are the 3 shapes of where we put our houses. But before we get into how the government actually draws the legal property lines.
Which is where the real decoding happens.
Exactly. But before we do that, we need to talk about the physical dirt itself. Because the environment definitely gets a vote in how a landscape looks.
Oh, nature gets the first vote. But the source material highlights how humans are notorious for constantly trying to override nature's veto.
Right. The analysis talks about the interaction between agriculture and the environment. And it uses this great term, possibilism.
Possibilism is such a powerful concept in geography. It essentially states that the physical environment sets certain limits, but human beings have the cultural and technological ability to adjust that environment to fit their needs.
Basically, we cheat.
We completely cheat. The ultimate example of this is terrace farming.
Oh, yeah. The rice paddies.
Think about a rice farmer in Southeast Asia. The crop dictates that you need flat, flooded fields to grow rice, but the environment you live in is essentially a vertical mountainside.
Nature's explicitly saying, no rice here.
Nature says absolutely not. But humans say, watch this, and they literally terraform the earth. They carve these massive, intricate steps right into the side of the mountain.
It's mind-blowing when you really look at pictures of those terraces in the Philippines or China. You realize you aren't looking at nature at all. You are looking at a multi-generational engineering project.
It's a flat-out refusal to accept the natural shape of the earth. We don't just live on the landscape, we aggressively sculpt it.
Okay, so we know where people choose to live and how they physically mold the terrain. Let's move to segment 3. Survey methods. The invisible lines.
This is the pivot from where you build your house to how the law decides what you actually own.
And honestly, this segment of the research finally explained to me why the East Coast of the U.S. looks like a tangled mess and the Midwest looks like a math test.
It's entirely down to three distinct legal systems.
Let's start with the oldest one in the U.S., the one with the best name, Metes and Bounds.
It sounds like something out of a medieval fantasy novel, doesn't it?
It really does.
And that's because it's an ancient British system brought over to the original 13 colonies.
So metes refers to the measurements, and bounds refers to the boundaries. But the way they actually measured things back then,
Yeah.
it's almost comical today.
It was a very organic process.
Organic is a very polite word for it. I was reading some examples of these old land deeds, and they literally read like pirate treasure maps.
Oh, yeah. Start at the crooked oak tree.
Exactly. Start at the crooked oak by the creek, walk 50 paces north to the large pile of rocks, then turn east toward Widow Smith's red barn.
Which is a perfectly fine system,
Yeah.
right up until a storm knocks down the oak tree.
Or the creek completely changes direction after a spring flood.
Or Widow Smith decides to pack up and move her barn.
It sounds like a total legal nightmare.
It caused endless disputes. But you have to understand the British mindset it came from. It prioritized the natural lay of the land. If there was a hill in the way, the property line just naturally curved around it.
Which results in what the AP Human Geoanalysis literally describes as wonky.
It's the technical term. It creates highly irregular, non-uniform plots of land.
So when you look at a map of New England or Virginia, and the roads are winding and the properties look like shattered glass, that's metes and bounds.
It follows the natural contours of the Earth. It feels very human, very quaint, but it is an absolute disaster for large-scale efficiency.
Which perfectly sets up system number 2, the ultimate American solution to inefficiency,
The township and range system.
the grid. And we have a very specific founding father to thank for this, don't we?
Yes, this was Thomas Jefferson's brainchild.
Now, if I read the analysis right, the motivation for the grid wasn't just that Jefferson liked neat squares. It was a financial emergency.
It was entirely about cash flow. Picture the United States in 1785. We are a brand new country, and we are functionally bankrupt from the Revolutionary War.
Broke.
Totally broke. But the government suddenly owns an unimaginably vast amount of land west of the Appalachian Mountains.
So they are land rich and cash poor. They need to sell that dirt.
They need to sell it as fast as humanly possible. But under the old British metes and bounds system, surveying is slow. You have to send a guy out to walk the perimeter, map the creeks, argue about the oak trees. It takes weeks to plot one farm.
And Jefferson realizes you can't scale that. You can't settle a continent that way.
Exactly. He wanted to commodify the American West, turn the wilderness into a standardized product you could buy off a shelf. So they imposed a rigid mathematical grid over the entire landscape,
6 mile by 6 mile townships.
divided into 36 one-mile square sections.
And it completely stubbornly ignores the actual topography of the earth.
It doesn't care about mountains or swamps. The grid lines go straight up cliffs and right across rivers. It's a philosophical statement that geometry conquers geography.
But from a sales perspective, it was genius.
Unbelievably successful, because a land speculator sitting in a coffee house in New York could buy Section 4 of Township 3 in Ohio without ever stepping foot there.
He knew exactly how big it was, 640 acres, and exactly what shape it was.
It turned the frontier into a liquid asset.
There's another detail in the source material that I found fascinating. The grid didn't just sell dirt. It actually baked public institutions right into the map.
Yes, the public school provision. Section 16 in every single township was legally reserved to fund and maintain a public school.
That's incredible.
It's profound. The federal government ensured that as the grid expanded westward, public education was literally mandated by the shape of the land.
So when you drive through Iowa, and every single county road intersects at a flawless 90-degree angle, that is 1785 federal tax policy etched into the mud.
It's the ghost of Thomas Jefferson steering your car.
Okay, so we've got the organic British chaos, we have the rigid American grid. Now we need to talk about the third survey method, the long lot system.
This one is visually striking. If you see it from the air, it looks like a barcode or a row of bowling alleys.
Really, really narrow lanes of land.
Yes, you might have a farm that is only a few hundred feet wide at the front, but it extends backwards for a mile or more.
Which honestly seems incredibly annoying to farm. Why would you shape a farm like a piece of fettuccine?
It all comes back to equity. This is a uniquely French system. You see it strongly in Quebec, Louisiana, parts of Texas, anywhere with a heavy French colonial footprint.
And it ties back to the linear settlement idea we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Access to the lifeline, usually a river.
Because if you drop Jefferson's square grid onto a river, it creates an immediate monopoly, right?
Right. The wealthiest farmer buys the one square block that touches the water. He gets all the shipping access, all the irrigation.
And the guy who buys the square behind him gets nothing. He's totally landlocked.
It instantly creates a harsh class divide based entirely on geography. The French long lot system was specifically designed to prevent that.
By giving everybody just a tiny sliver of the waterfront.
Everyone gets a narrow slice of the river for a dock and some water. Then their property extends way back into the less valuable upland or forest for timber and grazing.
It's deeply egalitarian.
It forces sharing. Everyone gets access to the transport network, and it means all your neighbors are lined up right next to you along the riverbank.
It's amazing how a legal philosophy, whether it's everyone deserves equal water access or we need to sell this real estate by Tuesday, physically alters the shape of a state.
It dictates where the roads go, how far you are from your neighbor, everything.
And this brings us to what I really think is the huge aha moment of this entire deep dive. It's a concept the analysis calls sequent occupants.
It's a foundational idea in human geography. It sounds incredibly academic, but it's actually a very poetic way to look at the world.
Break it down for us. What exactly is sequent occupants?
It is the idea that successive societies, one culture coming in after another, each leave their own cultural imprint on the physical environment.
Like layers of paint.
Or a palimpsest,
Right.
an ancient manuscript that has been written on, scraped clean, and written over again. But if you look closely, you can still see the faded ink of the old layers bleeding through to the present.
So when I look at a map of North America today, I'm not just looking at modern geography. I'm looking at historical ghosts.
You are seeing the colonial ambitions of the 1700s frozen in time.
So if I see that wonky shattered glass spider web of property lines in Virginia,
That's the British colonial legacy adjusting to the hills and creek.
and if I see those long, skinny bowling lane arms stretching off the Mississippi River in Louisiana,
That is the French trying to equitably share the river access.
and if I see the massive, perfect checkerboard covering Nebraska,
That's the U.S. federal government stamping order over the wilderness to pay off its debts.
it's just incredible. The landscape is quite literally a historical document. We just drive over it every day without knowing how to read it.
And those old layers still heavily impact us right now.
Well, totally. Think about your morning commute.
Yes. If you live in downtown Boston, your street is a tangled nightmare because you are driving on a path a cow took 300 years ago under the meets and bounds system.
But if you live in Phoenix, you're driving in straight lines because of a grid designed in the 18th century. These ancient decisions dictate our modern zoning laws, our traffic patterns, even our psychology.
It loops right back to the beginning. Clustered versus dispersed. Do we value the tight-knit, nosy village? Or do we value the isolated, rugged homestead? The land shaped us as much as we shaped it.
Which brings me to a final thought I wanted to throw at you. A bit of a provocation based on everything we've read here.
I'm ready. Go for it.
We established that the dispersed settlement pattern, the one that absolutely dominates the American West, completely relies on the assumption of abundance. Specifically, abundant, easy-to-reach water.
Correct. The only way you can live miles apart is if you can independently secure water miles apart. The aquifer makes the grid possible.
But we know that's changing rapidly. The water tables are dropping, the Colorado River is shrinking, the climate is shifting. The abundance that made that dispersed lifestyle possible might not be a guarantee anymore.
That is arguably the most critical crisis facing the American West today.
So my question is, if the core resource runs out, does the settlement pattern inevitably have to change? Like, are we going to be forced to abandon the edges of the grid and recluster around whatever water is left?
That is a fascinating and kind of terrifying thought. If the physical conditions disappear, the human geography has to adapt.
We might be entering a brand new phase of sequent occupants right now, and we don't even realize it yet.
A new layer is about to be written on the map, but this one will be dictated by scarcity instead of abundance.
Well, the next time you are stuck in that middle seat on an airplane, or just driving down a rural highway, take a hard look at the fields outside. Look for the grid. Look for the long lots.
See if you can read the story written in the dirt.
It definitely makes the flight go a little faster. Thanks for helping us decode all this.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.